Reactions from across the country have continued to trail the book, A Journey in Service, an autobiography of former military president General Ibrahim Babangida, which was released on February 28 in Abuja, the nation's capital. It was released before a congregation of Nigeria's biggest name in Nigeria's political economy, including President Bola Tinubu, ex-President Olusegun Obasanjo, and the 83-year-old former maximum leader, affectionately known among his admirers as Maradona of Nigerian politics, addressed quite a number of significant national events which took place over its 8 years in power. And for the first time, IBB admitted responsibility for engineering circumstances that led to the annulment of the election, which has been universally acknowledged as the fairest and the freest in Nigeria's history. Have any lessons been learned by Nigeria's political elite from the events that Babangida spoke about? And as the nation approaches another date with constitutional democracy in 2027, what more can be done to improve the country's electoral system for a better outcome? I'm now joined for a conversation around all that by a lawyer, politician, and a government advocate, Dr. Adesina Fagbenro-Byron. Great to see you on This Day Live, Doctor. How are you?
Good evening, Tony. How are you? Nice to be here, as always.
I'm good to have you here. So let's get into it immediately. Your first reaction on
yes.
The new June 12, as it is now, because before it was a disputed June 12, but now the man who made it a disputable issue has come to say everything said is true, and I guess he's sorry. What's your take? Let's start from that.
Well, to my mind, for me, it was never disputed. It was the fact that Babangida did not announce the results did not remove anything from the clarity of that election. So yes, you could say it was disputed, but it wasn't disputed by any of the contestants, nor was it disputed by the judge, the electoral manager. So it was only disputed by what I would call outsiders and the powers that be. So thankfully, before President Buhari left, he had already confirmed in several ways by recognizing June 12 as Nigeria's Real Democracy Day. So basically what Babangida came to do during his book launch was a validation of what was already known by most Nigerians. For me personally, I was a young lawyer at that time, not particularly wetted behind the ears. So we knew exactly what happened.
So nothing new there. What is going to be... That's your thought, yeah, so nothing new, you say. What is going to be new now is moving forward. Do you think that, one,
yes,
the lessons to be learned from that 1993 experience, and have we learned those lessons before we go ahead to the future that awaits us? Do you think there are lessons there, and have we learned those lessons?
Absolutely, there are lessons to be learned, but I'm not too sure whether we've all learned those lessons. Yeah. Now, who are the lessons for? There are lessons for the military. There are lessons for those who are in authority. I mean, separating their military personalities from their personalities and positions while they were in authority. There are also lessons for civil servants, including managers of INEC and people who work in government functions that support the electoral process, civil servants, security, INEC. Then there are lessons for the citizens of Nigeria. And I believe it's the citizens of Nigeria who really need to pay a bit more attention, and extract those lessons. And what are these lessons? For example, when Yemi Osinbajo was doing the book review, he did it in a lighter mode, but the entire book review itself and the manner he sort of delivered that book review showed in many ways than what he was saying, that all of you fought yourselves. It was almost bloodletting. There was bloodletting between yourselves, and now you're all sitting here today. Now, if somebody had showed you a crystal ball, or if somebody had showed the citizens of this country a crystal ball, that these people that you are fighting over and killing yourselves over are going to come and sit down today, I'm sure the attitude of the citizens would have been somewhat different. You know, there are a lot of people who passed on, there are a lot of people who died, principal of which was M.K. Abiola himself, his wife Kudirat, and thousands of others who died at that time. I believe that in the celebration or the book launch or whatever it was, I think that maybe some time should have been paid to those who might have lost their lives. I am not into the blame game or wouldn't, and of course, whoever was head of state, Babangida himself must take responsibility, which he did.
Which he did,
yeah. You know, yes, although I wasn't particularly impressed with his expression that Nigerians have seen his impression of regret, not his expression of regret. And he chose his words very carefully. He gave an impression of regret and not an expression of regret. And there's a clear difference between the two for those who really understand the finities of English. Yeah. So therefore, I'm not too sure, you know, when people are in authority and things are done and, you know, maybe no immediate repercussions are, are felt from what they've done, you know, there's always a hesitance, or there will be what I call, nitpicking as to what should I learn, who was wrong, what was, about taking and accepting blame.
Yeah.
So this is what we have here,
Let me take you back to the crystal ball scenario. You say that perhaps implicitly from Professor Yemi Osinbajo, the former Vice President of Nigeria's review of that book, he called people to say the fighters, the opponents, the antagonists of yesterday are now today comrades and friends and associates, or at least they're sharing moments together. So let's go back to your crystal ball analysis. Perhaps if Nigerians had a crystal ball to know that one day these same people would fight together, what is the lesson? What should they have done? Or what would you have done? What would you have advocated for? If you could show people crystal ball to say, be very careful, this is the future. If we take this path, one day all these people will be in a room together, laughing and clapping. What tip, what suggestion would you have given them 30 years ago, 33 years ago?
Well, that's a tricky question, and I've even, I think I set myself up for a very difficult question. But it is a realistic question, and that is where the lessons learn. Yeah. If you know that in some years' time, what appears to be priority may no longer be a priority, then one will be less emotional about the response. What we have done so far when it comes to elections, when it comes to democracy, is that the Nigerian people have been more reactive than responsive. And the difference between being reactive, we react based on how we feel emotionally, how we feel, how we are pained, how we are hurt. And our reaction is usually predicated from what was meted out to us, that is actions by government, statement by government officials. At times there could be some kind of patience. Take for example, Abiola did not have to go back to jail. Abiola had an opportunity to have taken a bail, a conditional bail. He could have, some people advised him, some people did not, some people advised him otherwise. Things like that. The kind of pressure people were putting on people, a lot of people would not go out and die in the streets. Some people would have hesitated and said, well, allow the flux of time. From time to time, we have approached certain controversies in this country without considering the fact that what will be the role of time especially we who are on the side of citizens, we are the masses. We see government do something and we want to react immediately. We want to show our feelings. Now, being responsive, on the other hand, is to be more calculated and say, okay, where is this thing going to get to? Take for example recently when the subsidies were moved out. When the subsidies were moved off by President Tinubu, a lot of people went to the street, wanted to go to the streets. We no go agree. We just have that was a reaction. And I recall that at some point I tried as much as possible to get people to take a break. Some of these reactive ways, some of these spontaneous ways we react only set us back. Nigeria has a very good way of taking one step forward and two steps backward. I mean, if you look at the history of counter-coups in Nigeria, coups and counter-coups, I've always noticed that any counter-coup that or any extrajudicial takeover of government that we believe has addressed or has punished a government that we think was not good enough or was putting us under some kind of pressure, we hail it, only to discover that things, I mean, if you go from 1966 January, that the new one is even worse. The first republic in this country were accused of all sorts of things that at the end of the day, looking back, they are infinitesimal. As far as I'm concerned, Tafawa Balewa was one of the most righteous leaders we've ever had when it comes to accountability, when it comes to management of public funds.
So you think they've gone worse? They've gone worse.
For God's sake.
So that is an option. The option of the
what I'm saying is that you don't, if you are not patient enough, right? What you rush into, you get my point. You may always and often regret it. Exactly. But to respond to a thing, otherwise, you relax and you take calculated steps.
I totally get
measured steps.
I'm sure viewers totally get your point. The idea of let time be a factor in consideration. Let us look at the wait and see. Let's time play. There's also another option I want you to comment on.
Yes.
There's also the option of saying, let us x-ray very well those who are going to be the new administrators for this democracy we fight for, and perhaps let us make sure that anybody that is suspect not be part of it. What is your take of that? Because there's a school of thought that say that one of the mistakes we made is that perhaps we should have made a law in 1999 to say anybody that is vaguely suspected of tolerating those who trunculated democracy should not be allowed to be part of democracy. Is that an option? What's your take on such option? Let me not say it's an option, you consider. What's your take in that school of thought?
Well, that option is not realistic, to be honest, because, look, last year I might have tolerated military, but I might have learned a lesson this year and I may decide to change. We're talking about a situation whereby, yes, exactly. So you can't really hold. There's a difficulty. Exactly.
No, I understand. Because you never know. People might have changed, or they might not be the same once again. The Italians
and things could turn. It could be the other way around.
It could be the other way around.
People who you thought were righteous.
Yes, they turned out to be something else.
Very democratic.
They turned out to be something else. Mind you, Doctor, the Italians after fascism did not think that way. They made that kind of law. The Germans after Nazism did not think that way. The French after the occupation actually made it clear. They said to themselves, now that we're forming a new republic, let all those who are friends, associates, beneficiaries, collaborators of the anti-democratic move not be part of this one. The Italians went so far, for example, in making sure that the firstborn, the male children of their monarch, could not participate in democratic movement. These are just historical facts that we should weigh in, because, as you rightly said, I'm just putting it to you that we have a tendency of thinking Nigeria is the first country in the world. There are examples in history that we might be able to to learn from. And, I say this because there'll be some people at home saying, no, that's not true. Other countries took another path. So let us let them know we know those paths. We just chose another one, we're who we are. Let us go to the future now. We have seen the democracy of 1993. We've seen the one of 2009. We've seen the one of 2003. We've seen the one of 2007, 2011, and up till 2023. So moving forward, 2027 is knocking on the door. What lessons would you learn? What lessons do you want us to take from all these past to the future of our electoral process? Not even democracy, just electoral process, which then affects democracy, of course.
Yeah, the principal thing is the electoral management, the electoral management, body. That is where the real work needs to be done. Yes. Because when people go into elections and say the electoral body rigged for them or rigged them out, what I have seen in my own observation is that we've had a very challenged electoral management body. We've had certain individuals in the electoral management body that have not demonstrated the kind of capacity or willingness as possible. Now, having said that, it is necessary for us to appreciate. Take, for example, I'll give you an example.
Please do.
In the 2023 elections, there were issues around the BVN, whether the BVN would be used or whether it would not be used. We knew the statements that INEC made. So INEC collected a certain amount of money to be able to install those devices. Those monies went into billions. Now, on the election day, those devices did not work as they were supposed to. Now, could this have been interpreted as obtaining monies by false pretenses? Because you collected money and it was not used. I think the stricter liability should be on INEC in terms of you collect your funds, you expect them to use for something, and you use them. For me, I don't think INEC favored one person or the other. I believe that the incompetence of INEC was very glaring, and those who took advantage of it took advantage of it. It's as simple as that. So I think we should start from that. But then there is a separate thing between voter and...
Before you go ahead to the second one, please re-explain that part. I don't want to misunderstand you.
Yeah.
You have used a very convoluted language.
Okay.
In plain English, we say, are you saying some people might have stolen or not? Why are you using all those long words to say, do you think that some people stealing in INEC? Yes. Let's keep it very simple.
What we are saying is that the carelessness of the umpire, right, cannot be attributed to either the victor or the vanquished.
I see.
The carelessness of the umpire is the carelessness of the umpire.
That is very clear.
That carelessness could have been taken advantage by anybody. So if you continue to go into elections to retain the carelessness of the umpire, the inadequacies of the umpire, and you wait after the elections to blame the person who won, that means that by hesitating and continuing with the carelessness of the umpire, you too want to take advantage of that carelessness someday.
That is very clear.
So I'm saying that the real point, the area where we need to focus on, let us see what we expect from our umpire. Let us see what we expect from police, from all those agencies. So, and this is where we can put our feet down regards to our lessons. I think also, too, that, you see, Nigerians should be, the executive branch of government is not the only branch of government. There is the legislative branch of government. How much attention do Nigerians pay?
And there's the judiciary, doctor, your people. And there's the judiciary, don't forget them.
No, but you see, yes. Yeah, that is true, but people don't, the general populace don't vote for the judiciary.
But let's
the
take
responsibility of... Yeah, but we will take them, of course. But what I'm looking at is now, we started by
in my mind, doctor,
what are the lessons
learned from it? In my mind, I'm thinking of lawyers who take cases to court that make me want to cry as a jurist. Maybe we should talk about those ones too. Yes. That they go to
Well, why
court
not? Yes.
with some cases that you wonder who graduated these people, who taught them at the bar. Let's talk about that as well. We've talked about the empire. Let's talk about the judiciary, starting from the lawyer before we go to the judge.
Yes.
But yes.
I'll tell you the same principle applies to law.
Yes.
In law, there is always two sides to a case. And in law, he who asserts must prove.
Yes.
And you cannot say that, you cannot, for example, we say in law that the right I have, right, to a piece of land, right, is not strengthened by the weakness of somebody else's claim.
Yes, over the
of the same piece of land.
Yes.
Yes. So what I'm saying in essence is that if I go to court for a matter, the person I'm taking to court has a right to defend it. Now, if I am careless in my prosecution, you will hear that some people are struck out for want of diligent prosecution.
Yes.
Now, so in the first place, there is a contestation. And where there is a contestation, there are two sides. And where there are two sides, there is a battle. And where there is a battle, there are tools for battle. And where there are tools for battle, there are different categories of such legal tools for battle. So some of them may be unorthodox.
Yes.
Some of those tools may border on illegality, but not plain illegality. That is why some lawyers says they don't break the law, but they bend it. So I am not holding brief for those who pursue cases in a very unethical manner. I am not holding brief for lawyers who try to use undue influence in a manner that will denigrate or reduce the integrity of the judiciary. That is that. Now, from what you've said, we started off by the executive, we looked at legislature, you brought in the judiciary, which means that there is, the issues we have, the challenges we have to be approached holistically in this country. Yeah. We've passed the stage. Yes, we've passed the stage where we say, we compartmentalize ourselves and say, this person is responsible for the problems, or that person is responsible for the problems. Even the citizens themselves, we have to, I think our democracy is young and we're growing and we're getting more mature with time. Some of these things have had to happen. Babangida has had to publish his book. It is his own narrative. Yeah. It is his own game. I am glad as people went there, a number of people were there, not because they believed what Babangida was writing, but as statesmen. A number of people were there in their capacities as statesmen. I know the president, for example, President Tinubu was there in his capacity as a statesman. He was the head of state. Babangida is the former head of state. I mean, he has to be there.
Buhari was not there.
But a number of people, we've had reports. Buhari was not there. Well, but you cannot say that. He gave a reason and he sent someone. So let us. No, we cannot presume. We always give people
Doctor,
the benefit of the doubt.
I'm very fascinated by the theory of the sloppiness of INEC that allows people to take advantage of the situation. Yes. Because in reality, if INEC does its job very well in a very transparent, logical, authoritative, and competent way, a lot of issues will not happen. So can we list some possible improvements that can be suggested for INEC, the INEC of the future? Yes, let's walk through some improvements you might want to suggest.
Okay, there's an issue of trust. The electoral management body must be trusted. That means it must set rules that are clear and abide by those rules to the very end. That's one thing. Then we should go to the WISE report. I don't know why we have, the WISE report in terms of electoral reforms was one of the most comprehensive and one of the most sincere electoral reforms that we've ever had. But we've cherry-picked in terms of what we should pick there. There's the issue of separating the management of political parties. There are rules and guidelines in terms of management of political parties. There are conventions and there are funding, and that can be separated from the management of the electoral process itself, you know, the actual voting, that process itself. So that one thing is there. There's another issue. There's a separation between civic education and voter education, which I don't think has been separated too well. The voter education, oh, come here this time, vote, you press your finger like this will be announced, and, you know, the process of voting. But civic education itself has a lot to do with what should determine why you vote, how should you vote, who can vote, what are the issues. Civic is a responsibility which we have totally neglected, and that is supposed to be between INEC and National Orientation Agency.
And of course, people in
those are
the categories, and of course, people in the civil society space like yourself with international experience and exposure.
And people, and people in the civil society space.
We shall
For example,
meet.
People in the
We shall meet in the
space.
civil society to keep advocating for these things. Dr. Fagbenro, thank you very much. It's great having you. Thank you very much. You and I can talk forever, but I think we've said a lot. A lot more needs to be said.